Carl Jung wasn't speaking. That belief has sunk deep into our minds as default programming. I need someone to love me in order to feel worthy. But is that really true? Carl Gustav Jung, the great psychoanalyst who pioneered the concept of individuation, stood in direct opposition to this popular view. According to Jung, real love doesn't begin when someone comes along to fill the void within us. It begins when we become conscious of ourselves. In Psychological Aspects of the Personality, he wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That's not just a striking quote. It's the key to every misguided choice we make in relationships we believe are destined. Because if you don't recognize the unconscious forces driving your beliefs, like fear of loneliness, emotional deprivation from childhood, or the feeling of not being enough, you'll keep seeking relationships that mirror those exact wounds. And when love is born from lack, it's not love. It's an addiction to being validated by others. Many people stay in painful relationships not because they truly love the other person, but because that person acts as a mirror, reflecting the parts of themselves they've never accepted. For example, someone who always feels inadequate, never good enough, beautiful enough, or lovable enough, will often be drawn to a partner who is distant, cold, or dismissive. Unconsciously, they're replaying a familiar script, trying to prove they are worthy, that if they're good enough, the other will stay. But the truth is, they're not fighting for love. They're fighting to escape the feeling of worthlessness they've never healed. And as Jung said, what you resist persists. If you haven't brought those unconscious patterns to light, they'll keep repeating, just with different names. That's why Jung emphasized, external love is only a mirror of internal love. The degree to which you love yourself is the same degree to which you'll attract people who reflect that. Someone who deeply loves themselves, not with hollow affirmations, but with full acceptance, won't be drawn to those who are vague, distant, or emotionally chaotic. They have no interest in playing games with love because they don't need to win at love to feel whole. They are already whole. Jung also warned that love doesn't come from lack. In The Development of Personality, he wrote, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." This quote makes clear that true loneliness doesn't stem from a lack of others, but from being disconnected from yourself. If you don't know what you need, what you love, or where your boundaries lie, you cannot love anyone in a healthy way. And the reverse is also true. When you are deeply in touch with your inner world, you no longer enter relationships to avoid emptiness, but to share wholeness. That is the fundamental difference between love born from fullness and love born from lack. Look at people who always end up in the same type of relationship, always betrayed, always unappreciated, always feeling like they weren't chosen. They often ask, "Why do I keep meeting people like this?" And Jung's answer is, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. If you constantly feel abandoned, maybe you abandoned yourself long ago. If you're always undervalued, maybe you've never recognized your own worth from within. This is the moment to turn your gaze inward. Not to blame or shame yourself, but to realize that you are the starting point of all connection. Jung believed that only when you embark on the path of individuation, facing your shadow, integrating your rejected parts, befriending your fear and pain, can you truly love and be loved. Love then ceases to be a game of emotion or survival and becomes a conscious union between two whole beings. To illustrate, imagine two people entering a relationship. The first feels constantly empty, craves attention, needs texts every hour. The second has inner peace, doesn't need control, but is always present when it matters. Same situation, hours without a reply, but completely different reactions. The first feels abandoned, insecurity flares up. The second remains calm because their self-worth isn't tied to the other's actions. One loves from fear, the other loves from fullness. And their outcomes will be worlds apart. We weren't taught how to love ourselves, but Jung gives us a path. Begin with observation. Listen to how you speak to yourself when you fail. Notice whether you forgive yourself easily. Ask, are you waiting for someone else to give you permission to feel worthy, or have you already given yourself that right? Love from the outside can only be deep and healthy when it's built on a foundation of inner love. Nothing external can fill the void you refuse to face. Jung never promised this journey would be easy. He once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." But he also believed that only when you become aware of the invisible parts of your psyche can you transform your reality, even in love. When you stop searching for someone to complete you, you begin to attract people who don't come to make you whole, but to expand your inner world. Love is not a reward for those deemed lovable by social standards. It is the natural reflection of someone who has chosen They leave because you're no longer on the same frequency. Imagine someone named Min. For years, Min kept falling into relationships where he was always the one giving more. He texted first, worried first, always yielded, always tried not to be difficult just to keep the other person from leaving. But strangely, the people Min loved were often distant, inconsistent, or worse, hurt him, apologized, and then hurt him again. After a breakup that left him exhausted, Min began to ask why he was always the one trying so hard. He read Jung, went to therapy, and learned how to come back to himself. It wasn't easy. Some days Min cried just from realizing that for years, the first person to abandon him wasn't anyone else, it was himself. But he didn't stop there. He started saying no. He started setting boundaries. He started asking, "Do I want this?" instead of, "Will they leave if I say no?" And something strange happened. The people who were tied to him through his pain began to disappear. No more old scripts, no more loops. Meanwhile, new relationships, deeper, calmer, began to show up. No more fighting for love, just meeting and choosing from two whole people. Carl Jung once said in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "As far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. That light doesn't come from someone else. It comes from you when you dare to step into yourself, to love the parts of you the world said were unlovable. When that light is lit inside, the outer world doesn't change because you forced it to. It changes because you've stopped emitting the energy of needing and lacking. At that point, you're no longer a magnet for relationships that hurt. You become the center of your own life, not revolving around anyone, and not needing anyone to revolve around you. If you're still unsure, look back. The times you felt most drawn to someone, weren't they often when you felt lost, incomplete, waiting to be saved? And the relationships that felt safest and most peaceful, didn't they come when you stopped trying so hard to impress or be chosen? Jung once said in The Development of Personality, "We cannot change anything unless we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses." You can't change old patterns by denying your inner lack. But if you dare to accept it, not to judge, but to heal, everything begins to shift. Not by doing more, but by being more of who you really are. And don't be surprised if, when you start loving yourself, some people around you begin to feel distant. That's because you're changing the energetic contract in the relationship. Before, you compromised. Now you have boundaries. Before, you stayed silent to keep the peace. Now you speak up to honor the truth. Not everyone will accept that, and that's okay. Those who can't respect your real self will naturally drift away. No arguments. No need to cling. Because you're no longer sending out the signal, "Please love me so I can feel worthy." You already love yourself, and that is enough. Remember, you don't need to be the best, the most interesting, or the most attractive to be loved. You only need to be the most honest version of yourself. And that's what makes you irreplaceable. Love comes from freedom. And the greatest freedom is when you no longer have to play a role, no longer have to strive to stay in someone else's life. Carl Jung showed us the way into the depths of the self, not to escape life, but to return to it more real, more grounded, more present. When you love yourself deeply enough, you no longer need anyone to validate your worth. But at that very moment, the most aligned people will find you. not to complete you, but to walk beside you. If you feel it's time to stop chasing and start living in truth, leave this one line: I choose myself. Because it is in that very moment that everything begins to change, not from the outside world, but from within you, and from there, real love finally begins. Number 4, the law of reflection in Jungian thought. There's a moment in every awakening journey that everyone must face, and it's rarely pleasant. The realization that every relationship that once hurt you didn't come to harm you, but to show you where you were already hurting. Carl Jung called this the law of reflection. In Ion, researches into the phenomenology of the self, he deeply explores this concept through the theory of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we deny, reject, or are not yet conscious enough to recognize. And he warned, the shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality, for no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort. Because the shadow goes unseen, it becomes an unconscious gravitational force, pulling toward you the people and situations that force you to face it. Imagine you are a mirror. The unconscious conscious. No one completes the journey of personal growth by living in a cave alone. You need mirrors, people, and experiences to reflect the parts of yourself you can't see on your own. The concept of projection is one of the central pillars of Jungian thought. When you haven't integrated a part of yourself, you tend to project it outward. You dislike people who talk too much because you haven't yet allowed your own voice to be heard. You avoid confident people because you haven't given yourself permission to shine. You attract manipulative people because you haven't learned to set boundaries. And here's the paradox. The more you reject a part of yourself, the more it keeps showing up outside you through the wrong people you can't seem to walk away from. But Jung didn't stop at identifying the problem. He offered a path forward: integration. When you are brave enough to face your shadow, not to flee it or blame it, but to embrace it as a legitimate part of yourself, you begin to integrate it into your conscious awareness. That means it no longer drives you from the inside. You no longer need others to reflect it back to you. And as a result, your relationships begin to change. For instance, someone who has always attracted emotionally cold partners might one day realize they grew up in an environment lacking warmth and learn to shut down their own feelings just to survive. That person no longer blames others for their coldness. Instead, they reconnect with their own emotions. They allow themselves to feel, to need, to long for closeness. And as if by psychological magic, they begin to meet entirely different people, attentive, empathetic, emotionally present, not because the world changed, but because they no longer needed someone to replay their old wounds to learn a lesson they've already understood. Jung wrote in The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, "Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. You don't become whole by discarding your darkness. You become whole by learning to carry both the light and the shadow within the same self, with compassion and clarity. And when you live as someone who has integrated their inner parts, the people you meet will be different too. They won't come to complete you or to mirror your fear. They'll come to walk beside you as two transparent mirrors with nothing to hide. So next time someone hurts you or touches a sensitive place within you, pause before reacting. Instead of asking, "Why are they like this?" ask, "What is this revealing about what's still unhealed in me?" This isn't about blaming yourself. It's about reclaiming your power. Jung taught us, you cannot control who enters or leaves your life. But you can control what you still need to attract, and that begins with the parts of yourself you're willing to integrate. Do you remember who your greatest mirror was? The person who hurt you most? Maybe today is the day you look back at that mirror, not to blame, but to thank. Because maybe they were the one who helped you see where you still needed to love yourself more. And that healing journey, no one can do it for you, but no one can stop you from starting it either, beginning today. Number 5, how to transform your inner world to attract healthy love. The answer lies in a very deep, very real, and also very subtle shift: the transformation of inner energy. Carl Jung was not only a psychoanalyst, he was a cartographer of the soul, someone who mapped the intricate workings of the human psyche. And he understood one essential truth: you cannot change your reality if you are still radiating the same energy from within. In The Undiscovered Self, Jung wrote, "As long as you are unconscious of what you are projecting, you will continue to create circumstances that make your projections seem true. The more you operate from lack, the more you believe, 'I need someone to love me to be enough.' The more you attract people who confirm that exact belief, that you're not enough, that you need them, that you must prove yourself, that you have to hold on. But the miracle is this: when you begin to transform, everything around you begins to move with it. And transformation isn't a grand upheaval. It happens quietly, but powerfully. It begins when you start doing the small things you've long denied yourself, like asking what you want before pleasing others. You stop staying silent when hurt. You set boundaries not to push people away, but to protect your self-respect. And most importantly, you stop begging for love, because you're now creating it from within. When you truly love yourself, you stop looking for someone to fill a void, because there is no void. You no longer need to prove your worth in any relationship. You don't strain to keep someone from leaving. You don't lower your standards out of fear of missing a chance at love. You no longer need to be the likable one, the easygoing one, the undemanding one. because you know you are worthy of a love that requires no performance. This energetic shift is profound. A person living from lack tends to attract those who play emotional games, those who are vague, who come when they need something and disappear when you need them. But someone living from wholeness is different. They don't cling, but they're also not easy to walk away from. Because their presence is grounded, they don't need to assert their worth, yet there's a quiet confidence around them that unsettles the unhealthy and attracts the genuine. Imagine someone who has always been abandoned in relationships. cloaking the mind. It blurs everything, turning the ordinary into threats, convincing you that if you stop planning, stop controlling, you'll plummet into an abyss. But Carl Jung argued that worry is not the necessary preparation we often believe it to be. Instead, it is a cunning deception of the ego, making us think we're in control of life, while in reality, we're imprisoned in an invisible jail of our own making. The ego operates like a frantic jailer, standing guard at the door of the unconscious. It despises uncertainty and trembles at the thought of things beyond its ability to predict. To maintain the illusion of control, the ego produces worry as a shield. It's like an incessant alarm blaring, reminding you, if you don't prepare, if you don't calculate, if you don't control, you'll be destroyed. Ironically, this very alarm drowns out everything else. You no longer hear your body, your intuition, or most certainly, the voice of the self, the deeper essence within you. Jung once said, "Neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering." In this light, worry is a form of mild neurosis. It doesn't truly resolve pain, but merely substitutes for experiencing that pain directly. Instead of embracing uncertainty, we try to evade it through spirals of anxiety. But just as painkillers mask symptoms without curing the root illness, worry only conceals the problem, never bringing true peace. Think of those sleepless nights when you toss and turn, your mind racing like a fast-forwarded film. What if they don't reply to my email tomorrow? What if I fail the interview? What if this relationship falls apart? Each what if is a seed planted in the fertile soil of your imagination, sprouting into a dense forest of catastrophic scenarios. But have you noticed? While your body lies safely in bed, your mind wanders through worlds that don't even exist. That is the essence of worry. Abandoning the present to live in imaginary nightmares. The ego loves this. It feels important when it's at the wheel, even if that wheel isn't attached to any vehicle. Worry, then, is a form of false labor of the mind. You feel like you're doing something useful, thinking, calculating, predicting, but in reality, you're just draining your energy. It's like running on a treadmill in a gym. The more you run, the more exhausted you become, yet you never truly move forward. In Jungian psychology, worry can also be seen as a distorted mirror. It doesn't reflect reality, but magnifies and warps it, making us feel more fragile than we are. For instance, a student facing an exam might spend weeks fretting, "I'll fail, I'll ruin my future, everything will collapse." But from an outside perspective, it's just an exam, a learning experience. Worry transforms a simple event into a catastrophe, much like a carnival mirror distorts the reflection of the person standing before it. The danger lies in how worry becomes a habit. When the brain grows accustomed to reacting with anxiety, it automatically seeks out triggers to worry about. Even when everything is fine, the ego whispers, "Maybe disaster is coming, and I just haven't seen it yet." It's like someone constantly bracing for a storm, so much so that even on a clear day, they hear imaginary thunder. Thus, the mind becomes locked in a state of perpetual false alarms. Jung saw a deeper truth here. Worry is not just a psychological reaction, but a manifestation of our fear of the inner darkness. Instead of sitting still to face the void, the uncertainty that is life's essence, the ego creates worry to avoid it. It's like a child afraid of the dark who, instead of sitting quietly in the room, runs in circles, turning on every light. But that light is never enough to dispel the fear. because the fear lies within, not in the room itself. For example, many people worry incessantly in love. They cling to their partner, believing that losing them would lead to collapse. But in truth, they're not afraid of losing the other person. They're afraid of losing the part of themselves they've unconsciously projected onto their partner. Security, validation, meaning. This is the ego's game. It forces you to worry about hiding a painful truth, the inner emptiness you've never confronted. Worry, therefore, is not merely a negative emotion. It is a signal. Like smoke rising from a burning room, it indicates something inside needs attention. But instead of entering the room, the ego often chooses to turn on a fan to blow the smoke away. Thus, worry never ends, because the root cause continues to smolder beneath. Jung emphasized, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. When we fail to recognize that worry is merely a veil, we let it steer our lives and call it destiny. But in truth, it's a destiny scripted by the ego, not the self. To put it vividly, worry is the rein the ego ties to your hands. It convinces you that letting go will send the horse galloping wildly. But in reality, the horse is the natural flow of life, powerful, with its own rhythm, capable of carrying you far beyond the ego's imagination. Only when you realize the rein is unnecessary do you begin to feel free. Worry is not our natural state. Is often tied to productivity, achievement, and control, letting go is easily labeled as laziness. Someone who rests, who doesn't rush or compete, is immediately suspected. Are they falling behind? Do they lack ambition? But letting go, in the Jungian sense, is the opposite of stagnation. It is an active state of observation and presence, rather than being driven by the ego's fear. The one who lets go doesn't do nothing, they act, but from clarity, not panic. A practical example, many artists share that their best works didn't emerge from force, but from moments of release, when they stopped trying to create something great. Musician Paul McCartney said, The melody for yesterday came to him in a dream, not during hours of strained effort. This shows that when we let go of the ego's compulsion, I must produce something extraordinary. The subconscious and unconscious have space to offer something miraculous. Perhaps this is the moment to pause and ask yourself, when was the last time you allowed something to come to you naturally, without forcing it? If you're willing, share in the comments to listen again to the true voice within. Letting go is like opening a window in a stuffy room. While the ego pulls the curtains tight, believing it's protecting us from dust and storms, it's actually depriving us of air. Once the window opens, fresh air rushes in, light pours through, and we realize the world isn't as threatening as the ego painted it. Far from laziness, this is an act of courage, daring to leave the safety of control to connect directly with life's true rhythm. Jung also emphasized that letting go means refusing to identify with outcomes. When we act but believe our worth lies in results, in success, in recognition, worry will always return. Letting go is a subtle shift from I act to prove myself to I act because I am myself. A poet writes not for praise, but because the poem is the true breath of their soul. A lover loves not to possess, but to experience the vivid presence of love. This is the fundamental difference between laziness and awakening. Laziness is refusing to engage, while letting go is engaging without needing to possess. Picture a bow and arrow. The ego clutches the arrow, fearing that letting go will mean losing everything. But letting go is the moment you release the string, letting the arrow fly toward the direction its inner energy has built. If you don't release, the arrow stays stuck, never reaching its target. Likewise, when we let go of control, life has a chance to reveal its inherent order. This doesn't mean passivity. On the contrary, letting go demands heightened awareness. A mountain climber knows they can't control every gust of wind or loose rock. They prepare, train, and then, on the mountain, they must trust their intuition and the life around them. If they try to control every element, they'll exhaust themselves and fail. But by knowing when to tense and when to relax, they harmonize with the mountain. Letting go, therefore, is a form of practiced wisdom. From a psychological perspective, letting go is a shift from the ego's dominance to the self's guidance. The ego thinks in linear logic: if A, then B, if B, then C. But the self operates in the logic of symbols, intuition, and holistic connection. When we let go, we stop trying to solve life's equation with formulas and allow inner images and feelings to guide us. It's like standing before an unfamiliar forest. The ego demands a detailed map for every step, while the self urges you to listen to the sounds, observe the paths, and let your feet find their own rhythm. In therapy, many patients who try to heal quickly end up stuck. But when they accept that healing is a natural process, that emotional wounds need time, recovery begins in that very acceptance. Letting go isn't rejecting treatment, but ceasing to demand instant okayness. Jung called this an act of trust, a belief in the wisdom of the unconscious. In essence, letting go is the realization that life is not a machine we can program, but a river we must learn to swim with. The lazy person sits on the bank, refusing to enter the water. The controller flails, fighting the current. But the one who lets go flows with the stream, swimming and feeling, and thus reaches farther shores. If worry is the ego's false alarm, letting go is the act of silencing it and listening to the true stillness. In that stillness, we hear the self's voice, gentle, patient, yet persistently guiding us toward truth. This isn't an escape from life, but the first step toward living authentically. So, when Jung says letting go is the key to everything falling into place, he invites us into a state of full presence, doing our best without identifying with outcomes, loving wholeheartedly without needing to possess, living fully without demanding life bend to our will. This is the delicate yet profound difference between laziness hourly, analyzing every tiny gesture. In truth, she's not just afraid of losing a person, but of losing the image of "I am lovable, I am chosen." Love, in this case, becomes a mirror for self-worth. When that mirror shakes, the entire psychological foundation shakes with it. Jung believed this was the mechanism of projection. We don't see the other as they truly are, but project onto them our expectations, our unhealed lacks within ourselves. We turn them into characters in our inner script. And since no one can perfectly fulfill a script that isn't theirs, worry becomes an inevitable consequence. It's like watching a movie where the characters refuse to follow the script you've written. Disappointment is unavoidable. Behind this mechanism lies a painful truth. We don't worry about reality, but about reality not matching our ideal image. The ego whispers, "Everything must be this way. I must succeed. I must be loved. I must always be strong." But life rarely operates on musts. That discrepancy becomes the source of suffering. Worry, in essence, is the gap between expectations and the present. Imagine holding a perfect crystal vase that you treasure immensely. With every step, you tremble. What if it falls? What if it cracks? That fear doesn't come from the walking, but from the obsession with preserving that flawless image. Those identified with the persona are the same. They become jailers of their own crystal vase, their self-image, and live in constant tension. This is also why many feel perpetually not enough. When the persona is inflated, the ego turns life into a stage where one must perform endlessly. They are no longer allowed contradictions, mistakes, or changes. And this not allowing spreads worry like a silent disease. They're like exhausted actors backstage, yet they must step out smiling so the audience doesn't notice. And perhaps this is the moment for each of us to pause, to ask ourselves, are we protecting real life, or just a mask? If tomorrow all the titles, roles, and images we cling to vanish, could we still recognize who we are? An honest answer will reveal how we've been living all this time. Jung reminds us that the persona is merely a bridge between the outer and inner worlds, never the whole person. But when we fully identify with the mask, any crack becomes a catastrophe. A small rebuke can cause sleepless nights. An ordinary failure can turn into an existential crisis. Worry here isn't because the event is too big, but because we've magnified it to threaten our entire identity. Identification with images also leads to a paradox. The more we try to maintain perfection, the further we stray from authenticity. A leader afraid of being seen as weak will never dare share their insecurities, thus living in isolation. A woman worried about keeping the image of the perfect mother won't allow herself fatigue or anger, thereby accumulating hidden stress. Worry becomes the natural consequence of this split between the real self and the permitted image. It's clear that the root cause of worry doesn't lie in external events, but in internal identification. When we place our entire worth in the persona and expectations, any change in life becomes a fatal blow. The ego whispers, "If this image shatters, you vanish too." And we believe it, trembling as we protect that image every second. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Indeed, as long as we cling to the persona, we'll never dare look at our inner complexity. But the paradox is, only when we dare release the image do we approach true wholeness. Worry, in this sense, is a sign that we're living for expectations, not for our essence. Number 4, the transformation process, from worry to inner freedom. So the question arises, how do we escape this trap? Jung suggests that the way out isn't conquering worry, but transforming it. And this is a process, a subtle psychological journey, where one moves from the darkness of anxiety to the light of inner freedom. This process doesn't begin with outward courage, but with quiet inner recognition. When worry surges, the ego's usual reflex is to suppress it, bury oneself in work, seek validation from others, or mask it with busy activities. But Jung encourages the opposite. Pause and observe worry as a psychological phenomenon. This is like standing under an awning watching a storm instead of fleeing it. The storm may rage, but when we stop identifying with it, we realize it's just part of the weather, not the entire sky. For example, someone fearing rejection in a relationship. Instead of trying to control the other, they turn inward and ask, "Am I really afraid of losing this person or of losing the feeling of being loved?" That simple question can reveal a deeper layer. Worry isn't about love, but about the void within oneself. This is the first step of transformation, looking straight at the root, not just treating the symptoms. After recognition comes confrontation. Confrontation means allowing oneself to fully experience the emotions calm seas. They just need balance on the waves. When we learn to stand firm amid worry, we discover a deeper, quiet strength. Jung called this contact with the self, the true center of the soul, beyond the ego. Imagine a dense forest. By day, light floods it, and we navigate easily. But at night, the forest becomes threatening, every sound evoking anxiety. If we only linger at the edge in fear, we'll never know that deep in the darkness lie streams, meadows, and abundant life. The transformation process is daring to enter the forest at night. At first, trembling, but as we go deeper, our eyes adjust to the dark, and a new world unfolds. Inner freedom isn't staying in the light, but venturing into the dark to discover another light, the one emanating from within. It's important to understand that transformation doesn't happen in a magical moment, but in a chain of small daily experiences. Each time we stop fleeing, stop reacting automatically, it is a step. Each time we accept failure without equating it to our worth is a step. Each time we sit still with worry instead of extinguishing it, it's a step. These small steps, over time, create a major shift. From a self imprisoned in anxiety to an essence of inner freedom. This process is also like a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. The caterpillar thinks it's dying as the cocoon envelops it, but it's actually transforming. Worry is similar. When we let it envelop us, it can feel suffocating. But if we dare stay in the cocoon, we'll see wings forming. Inner freedom isn't escaping the cocoon, but completing the inner process until one day the wings unfold. Carl Jung once said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." When we stop letting worry define us and choose to become the observer, the learner, we enter freedom. Anxiety may still appear, but it's no longer a prison. It becomes a teacher, pointing out where we need healing, where we need to return to ourselves. In summary, the transformation process from worry to inner freedom is a three-step journey: recognition, confrontation, and release. Each step demands courage, as it forces us to look at the truth instead of the image. But through this, worry ceases to be an enemy and becomes a door to growth. And when that door opens, we enter a different space, where the ego stops steering and the self guides. That is freedom. Not freedom from life, but freedom to live fully within it. Before continuing, if you feel this journey touches you personally, take a moment to support the channel with a like and subscription. It's not just a way to not miss future content, but also a small commitment to yourself to continue walking the path of transformation and inner freedom. Number 5. When we stop worrying, everything is allowed to unfold naturally. And precisely when this release occurs, a curious phenomenon begins to emerge. Life seems to know how to arrange itself. The paradox lies here. The less we force, the more easily things fall into place. Imagine a garden. If you tug at a young plant every day to make it grow faster, you only tear its roots. But when you water it, nurture the soil, and let time and sunlight do their work, the seedling naturally stretches upward. Life is the same. When we stop forcing, stop worrying, we create space for its natural rhythms to unfold. Letting go of anxiety doesn't mean losing control. It restores to life the right to flow according to its essence. Jungian psychology suggests that within each person lies a self-organizing principle, what Jung called the self. This is the deepest center, both the core and the compass of our being. When the ego dominates, we see only chaos, as it incessantly demands, "It must be this way, it must be that way." But when the ego steps back, the self has a chance to emerge, and we begin to notice an invisible order. Seemingly disconnected events start to align, opportunities appear at just the right moment, and the pieces of life gradually fit together. A common example is those moments of flow the state artists, athletes, or creators experience when they immerse themselves in their work without obsessing over outcomes. A musician who stops worrying about the audience and lets the music flow creates a piece that captivates in unexpected ways. A runner who ceases fixating on performance and tunes into the rhythm of their breath suddenly finds they run farther than ever before. When anxiety dissolves, the energy trapped in control is freed, and life unfolds like a seamless stream. On a spiritual level, this is akin to a lake calming its ripples. Only then can it reflect the sky. Worry is like ceaseless ripples, distorting the image, preventing us from seeing the full picture. But when we let the lake settle, the sky appears in its entirety, and we realize the truth was always there. We just hadn't given it a chance to reveal itself. Life, in a state free of worry, becomes a clear mirror, reflecting the essence of things. sacrifice in the name of love, letting go is often seen as failure. But Carl Gustav Jung, the master of existential psychoanalysis, pointed to the opposite. To him, the most courageous thing isn't always to hold on, but to dare to release. Because letting go isn't simply ending a relationship, it's the highest act of love toward oneself. It's no coincidence that many people carry the belief, if I try a little harder, maybe things will change. But the question is, try for what? For true love, or for the fear of being left behind? Jung once said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their soul. Sometimes, staying in a decaying relationship is how we avoid confronting ourselves. We convince ourselves that holding on is proof of loyalty, when in truth, it's often a silent betrayal of our worth. We're not holding on to the other person. We're clinging to a part of ourselves, the part that fears being forgotten, being meaningless, being alone. There's a well-known story in therapy circles. A woman repeatedly returns to her ex-husband despite years of betrayal and coldness. When asked why she can't walk away, she quietly says, "Because at least when I'm there, I still feel needed by someone." But being needed is one thing. Having value is another. The cost of holding on to the wrong person isn't just tears. It's the slow erosion of self-respect. And the harshest truth is, we think we're still in love, when in fact, we're resisting the idea that we're not enough to stay in someone's heart. Carl Jung saw this hidden drive. In his analytical psychology, clinging to what no longer fits is a sign of an immature ego, an ego still ruled by the primal fear of disconnection, of not being seen. But true inner growth begins when we dare to face that fear and admit, I made a wrong choice, but I no longer want to keep hurting myself. Jung wrote in The Undiscovered Self, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. Letting go, then, is not running away. It is the first step toward awareness, where we no longer define ourselves by someone else's presence or absence, but by how we treat ourselves. A common mistake is believing that only the weak walk away, but in truth, only the brave can let go without regret. Jung explained this through the concept of individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, separating from expectations, roles, and patterns imposed by society or past relationships. This process demands solitude and sometimes collapse, but it is in the collapse that space for rebirth opens. Someone undergoing individuation comes to understand, I am what I choose to become. And the most noble choice is to walk away from what no longer reflects your true value. If you've ever stayed with someone just because you were afraid of being alone, then you know the numbness of a relationship that has lost all life. The truth is, many people remain day after day, not because they still love, but because they no longer know who they are without the role of lover, sacrificer, or sufferer. They're not fighting for love anymore. They're fighting against their emptiness. But living like that is survival, not life. Carl Jung understood this well and pointed out that when we cling to toxic relationships, we're clinging to an unhealed part within ourselves. We call endurance loyalty. We call sacrifice love. But if love costs you your peace, if it makes you lose yourself, then it's no longer love. It's self-destruction, masked as emotion. Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. If we don't clarify why we fear letting go, we'll keep reliving emotional loops and call the pain destiny. But it's not destiny, It's a choice. Think of the people you've known, those who still wait for a message from someone who's long gone, who hold on even after countless wounds. They're not weak. They're simply not ready to face the truth that one-sided affection isn't love. It's misplaced hope. And when hope becomes the only reason to stay, it also becomes the chain that keeps us from flying. Only by daring to let go can we be free. And that freedom doesn't come from the outside. It comes when we no longer need others to define our worth. Letting go isn't proof that love has ended. On the contrary, it's the deepest kind of love. Loving yourself enough not to accept being treated as an afterthought. Loving yourself enough not to wait for someone to choose you as a backup plan. And also, loving the other person enough not to make them a dumping ground for your hopes, illusions, or old wounds. Carl Jung emphasized that only when we accept walking away from relationships that no longer reflect our psychological maturity do we truly begin the healing journey. What you resist persists. The more pain a relationship causes, the more we cling, the deeper that pain embeds itself. We are taught how to hold on, but few of us are taught how to walk away in peace. We believe that love means staying no matter the cost. But sometimes, love means walking away, looking at yourself and saying, I cannot keep hurting myself just to hold on to someone who no longer wants to stay. And that, though painful, is a victory. A kind of courage that draws no applause, but silently proves that you've begun to grow, to come home to yourself. So next time you find yourself holding on to someone who's long let go, remember, the brave one is not the person who keeps holding on, but the one who knows when to stop. And letting go does not make you weak. Letting go is when you lift your head, close a wrong chapter, and begin writing the life you deserve with lighter hands, a heart free of burden, and wings finally ready to fly. Number 2, choosing yourself is the first step toward freedom. If letting go is the courageous act of ending what no longer fits, then choosing yourself is the first step toward truly living. Because once you release the hand of someone who no longer holds yours, the more important question becomes, who will you hold on to now? Do you have the courage to return to yourself, to your values, to the freedom you've traded away just to remain in someone else's heart? Before we go further, let me ask you this. When was the last time you truly chose yourself? Not a compromise, not an attempt to please someone else, but a real moment of standing up for yourself, even if it meant walking away from a relationship, a person, a faded dream. If it takes you too long to answer, this next part is for you. There's a heartbreaking paradox in love. We often give others everything we've never learned to give ourselves. We fight to be loved, wait for a message, sacrifice time, opportunity, even self-respect, just to matter in someone else's world. But the more we fight to be kept, the more we lose ourselves. Carl Jung once wrote in Modern Man in Search of a Soul, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. It's because we fear choosing ourselves so deeply that we're willing to give up everything just to be chosen by someone else." Choosing yourself is not selfish. On the contrary, it's the foundation of every healthy relationship. When you stop, lift your head, and ask, does this still align with my values? That is the first moment of freedom. Because freedom doesn't come from escaping others. It comes from no longer betraying yourself to keep someone else. When you let go of someone who didn't choose you, you're not just walking away from them, you're walking back to yourself. We often think the greatest bravery is daring to love. But sometimes, true courage is daring to stop loving when that love is tearing you apart. Jung wrote in The Relations Between the Ego and the Unconscious, "Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration. You cannot become whole if you keep cutting pieces of yourself just to fit someone else. Staying in a warped love does not prove loyalty. It only shows you're sacrificing yourself for an illusion. Think of a flame. When you nourish yourself, you keep that flame burning. But if you keep using it to warm someone who never values it, in the end, all that's left is ash. How many times have you done that? How many times have you poured all your energy, emotion, and hope into someone, into a relationship that only left you empty? And each time, a part of you went dim, not because they left, but because you never truly stayed with yourself. Jung believed that the individuation journey is the deep spiritual path every person must walk to recognize their true self. On that journey, you'll have to stand alone. You'll have to learn not to need others to feel complete. Because when your value depends on someone else's love, that's not love. It's handing them the power to define you. Jung emphasized, your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. Choosing yourself is awakening. It's the end of dreaming of love from others, and the beginning of creating real love from within. Imagine a woman who spends nearly 8 years with a man who never commits. Every time she tries to leave, he returns with the promise, "I'll change." And she stays, not for love, but because she believes, "I've invested too much to walk away now." In truth, the only thing she hasn't dared to invest in is herself. She loved him like a long campaign, thinking that if she just tried a little harder, love would bloom. But love isn't a campaign. Love is freedom, the freedom to be yourself. One day, when his promises no longer move her, she realizes, this is not the end of love. It's the beginning of self-respect. She lets go and begins choosing herself in every decision, every boundary, every step forward. Do you see yourself in that story? Maybe you've been her. Maybe you still are. But you don't have to stay one more day in a story where you're the only one writing. Choosing yourself means placing the period at the end of the sentence and starting a new chapter, one where you are the main character, not a side role in someone else's life. An unbalanced love is like standing on one side of a seesaw, waiting for someone to step on the other end, but they never do. You don't fall, but you can't rise either. Only when you step off do you realize you weren't born to wait for someone to complete your life. You were born to become whole, to be free. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, Jung once said. And you can't become your true self while living as an extension of someone else. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's choosing the source of all healthy relationships. Love is the resonance between two people who each know how to care for themselves. If you give only to be seen, to be loved back, that isn't love. That's emotional negotiation. And you deserve more than that. You weren't born to bargain your worth. Not to be chosen as someone's backup plan. You were born to know you are worthy, even if no one else says it out loud. Carl Jung taught us that within every person lies a shadow, the part of us that hides the fear of abandonment of being forgotten, of rejection. And only when we dare to face that shadow can we rise and say, I don't need to be chosen anymore, because today I choose myself. You may still love, you may still mourn, but if you must choose between a love that costs you and a solitude that nourishes your growth, please choose yourself. Because in the moment you return to yourself, you'll realize that freedom was never about who stood beside you. It was about never abandoning yourself again. And from that moment on, you begin to truly live, not for anyone, And when you let go of someone who no longer deserves you, it's not the end. It's the beginning of the most important conversation you'll ever have. The one with your shadow. Letting go, in this context, is not just an emotional act. It's a spiritual evolution. Jung called this individuation, the journey where a person separates from roles, ideals, and fantasies of being unconditionally loved to return to their true self. On this path, you no longer love to be filled, to be validated, to exist in someone else's eyes. You love because you've begun to recognize the completeness within you. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious, Jung emphasized. There is no true light unless you've walked through your darkness. There was once a man who deeply loved a woman he called his muse, his destiny. Yet in the 2 years they were together, she never once acknowledged his worth. She loved him when it was convenient, left him when it wasn't. And still, he stayed. Not for her, but because inside him was a voice always whispering, "If I try just a little harder, maybe this time will be different." But one day, when she disappeared without a word, he finally looked back and saw. He had never truly loved her. He loved the hope that one day someone would choose him fully. And for the first time, he realized the person he needed to talk to wasn't her. It was the child inside him, still waiting for an embrace that never came. The shadow is not evil. It's simply the forgotten part. But it's that very part that shapes how we love, how we let go, how we hurt. And only when we begin to listen to it do we truly begin to heal. In love, every time we forgive ourselves for choosing wrong, every time we stop expecting someone to love us the right way, every time we stop fearing being alone, that's a step into freedom. And that freedom doesn't come from anyone else. It comes from the moment you begin listening to the part of you that was once left behind. Carl Jung never promised that facing the shadow would be easy, but he believed it was the only path to wholeness. And true love can only be born from a place where there's no fear, no illusion. Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration, he wrote. You don't need to become someone else. You only need to embrace all of yourself, both the light and the dark. And if you've ever loved someone not for who they are, but because you believed you'd be healed if you could just keep them, pause. Ask yourself, who am I trying to save? Them or the part of me that was never held? That is the beginning of awareness, of transformation, and of real love. And if you've come far enough to touch the darkness within you, then what you need next is this. After seeing the shadow clearly, your next lesson is not how to make someone love you. It's how to love yourself without conditions. Number 5. When you let go, you fly, the rebirth of the self. Imagine this. One quiet morning, you wake up and realize you're no longer waiting for a message. You no longer check social media to see who still remembers you. Your heart doesn't feel as heavy as it did yesterday. Not because someone came back, but because you came back. And in that very moment, something strange happens. You begin to fly. No wings, no soundtrack, no audience. But inside, you feel a lightness you've never known. You're not flying to escape. You're flying as a silent declaration. I no longer need to suffer to be loved. Carl Jung never painted the journey back to yourself as beautiful or easy. He didn't call it romantic. He simply called it the privilege of a lifetime. And that privilege doesn't come after perfect love. It comes after you finally learn how to walk away from the wrong one you once mistook for fate. True freedom doesn't come from erasing someone's name from your memory or from deleting old messages or hiding photos. Freedom begins the moment you no longer need them to feel worthy. And in that moment, you no longer feel lacking. Because the emptiness was never them. It was the space you never dared to fill with love for yourself. In a group therapy session, a woman in her 30s once said, "I used to think I'd die if he left. But when I stopped waiting for him, I felt more alive than ever." The room fell silent. No one applauded, but dozens of eyes welled up, because everyone there knew that feeling. The moment you come down from the high of emotional addiction, step out of the cycle of waiting, and realize no one's leaving you. You're the one finally coming back. Jung didn't use the word fly in a literal sense, but he spoke of the rebirth of the self, and it can feel like flight. Because after all, when you stop living according to someone else's choices, you become lighter. You no longer drag yourself through each day, hoping they'll change, hoping one day they'll finally see you. You begin to live without needing to prove your sure who you are without loving them. And that's a good sign, because it means you're being given the chance to be reborn. Not from the beginning, but from the deepest part of yourself, the part that's never truly been allowed to live. Carl Jung called this process individuation. When you stop living inside others' expectations, stop confining yourself to roles drawn by someone else. When you realize your value doesn't come from who holds onto you, but from whether you still hold onto your truth. And with every step toward that truth you see, you're not falling anymore. You're flying. So I want to ask you, if today you dared to let go of something you once thought you never could, how would your life begin to change? Share with me in the comments with one simple sentence. Today, I let go to feel lighter, to fly. Because you don't need someone else to lift you. You just need to stop weighing yourself down. Carl Jung once said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." And maybe there's no more revolutionary choice than to let go, not because you're weak, but because you're finally strong enough to release what no longer reflects your true worth. Letting go is not a full stop. It is the door that opens to the journey home. Back to you, to a self that doesn't need to be chosen, because you've already chosen yourself. A self that no longer trades self-respect for misplaced love. A self whose peace doesn't depend on someone staying, but on never abandoning yourself again. So if you're standing at the edge of letting go, be brave enough to step through. Not to forget someone, but to remember yourself. Not to run away, but to fly. Today I let go to fly, not from love, but from illusion. Not from others, but from the self-abandonment I no longer accept. Do you dare to choose yourself right now? If so, leave that simple sentence as a quiet commitment. Today, I let go to fly. Because the moment you choose yourself, you begin rewriting the entire story. And if something you've just read has touched a wound, stirred an old dream, or awakened a part of you long neglected, then maybe this isn't the last time we meet. Subscribe to the channel so every new video becomes the next step in the journey back to yourself. Because you don't need anyone to save you. You only need to remember you've always had the power to fly, and we'll be here, walking with you one step at a time.